So let's start with this. Notre Dame at Wisconsin. So Jack Coan was the Wisconsin quarterback.
Yeah.
And I don't know the particulars, and I'm very well connected. But he ended up at Notre Dame, and now he faces them. And I've always had this weird, I can't figure Wisconsin out. How can they be great everywhere and never at quarterback? So Jack actually has some talent. He goes to Notre Dame, and what I've seen so far, he's better with the Irish than he was with Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that. It is interesting with Wisconsin, but part of the reason why he is at Notre Dame is because they felt like this Graham Mertz, who is their quarterback, was going to be higher ceiling player than what Coan is. And Mertz hasn't really panned out in that regard, but they were clamoring for Mertz because he was more highly recruited than Jack Coan. Coan has been very good for Notre Dame, and he's actually given them a little bit more in the passing game and the explosive passing game than they had with Ian Book.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take anything away from Book. He was a winning quarterback.
He's got a better arm than Book, doesn't he?
Yes, he does, and in particular down the field. And Maher's a great tight end, and I think that they're going to be decent on offense. The struggle comes in for Notre Dame is that they're finally young. I say finally because they've had such a great run of offensive linemen. Such a great run.
Now it's all underclassmen.
And now they've got a lot of young guys who will be great. Like in 2 and 3 years, this Notre Dame offensive line is probably going to be as good as anybody in college football, top 2-3 offensive line in college football. But right now, they're getting their feet wet. They've dealt with some injuries, and so that's what Coan is having to deal with is trying to play quarterback behind an offensive line that's not quite giving the same run game production that they had a couple of years ago.
So I have been on this for years, and I think you have. We both love college football, but it's gotten very southern and very insular. Now, I love the SEC. I watch a ton of it. But I don't think any sport is good when it's regional.
Sure.
In fact, this is why
it's what's wrong with baseball.
It's like it's regional. Like nobody in New York cares about the Padres or the Minnesota Twins.
That's right.
So the NFL will watch anybody. So this year in college football, it feels a little different.
Yes.
So first of all, Dan Mullen's a great coach. My Florida gave Alabama a lot of problems.
Everything they could handle.
Now we know A&M and Georgia have 5-star athletes everywhere. So, and by the way, I know Alabama's going to be around at the end, but do you think they roll through the SEC?
I will stop short. Listen, I will not make the mistake of saying Alabama is beatable. This is the year. Listen, Alabama still went in and won a game against a ranked opponent on the road with a very young roster, beat up at linebacker, first-year starter at quarterback, replacing all those wide receivers, right? Like what they were able to do is still pretty impressive. The problem is that we hold them to the Alabama standard, which is beat the doors off of everybody. And maybe they're not quite that team, but they're still a very good team, and they probably will be there in the end. This year for me, though, I feel, and I see it in the ratings of our games and others, I feel it in the stadiums that we're at. And when I just walk around these towns, when I get into town on Thursday and Friday, people are more excited about college football this year than they have been in a long time.
Totally agree.
In a long time. And Colin, I think that part of that, there's two factors that I think are leading to this. One of them is the fact that we've seen vulnerability from the top.
Yeah.
And
Clemson's already lost. Their quarterback is not struggling a little bit.
Ohio State has lost.
Alabama almost lost.
Oklahoma has not looked like
Good
world
at
beaters.
all. Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden you're getting these other fan bases that are like, hey, this could be a great year for us at Iowa and Penn State. And Michigan State has come out of the doors, playing so well. Michigan has as well. Oregon. You're getting this new blood feel of college football, and I think it's very good for the sport. Also, I would also say that the two things this year that are different are that you've got so many transfers and the super senior, the 6th-year player, which don't necessarily affect in a positive fashion OU, Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama because all of their super seniors are in the NFL.
Right.
So all these other programs have very experienced older players.
Now, let me push back a little. A lot of you guys, you media types, you give flowers to players and coaches. You crown them. And let me push back on this. So, Ryan Day gets the job from Urban, and an hour later, I'm told he's Belichick. He is on the train, and I'm like, all right, I watched their defense last year, stinkeroo. I watch it this year, it's not very good. Everybody, Mark Helfrich took over for Chip Kelly, and for a year, you didn't see anything.
Oh, he had Mariota, still.
Okay, I'm watching Ohio State now. This is the second year without Urban. That defense is not a championship defense.
No.
It's not close.
No, and they're going through some wild growing pains right now. And you could argue like, well, he just inherited everything from Urban, but that's not technically accurate because he recruited Justin Fields to come there. That was a post-Urban decision from Justin Fields.
Yeah.
He hired Jeff Hafley. That actually wasn't Urban's first choice to be the defensive coordinator in Ryan's first year. That was a Ryan hire. Now, as a head coach, what these guys are going to have to start to understand, these young guys, and Lincoln Riley's going to deal with it, and Ryan Day is going to deal with it, is that you have to either be Dabo Swinney or Nick Saban. What do you mean by that, Joel? Well, Dabo Swinney has created a culture where all of his assistants just stay.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to deal with the turnover on the staff. You know, Elliott has been there. Venables has been there. They're coordinators now. They get the support from the school to pay them handsomely, well over $2 million, just to be assistant coaches. Or you've got to be Nick Saban, which is, I'll win with 8 different coordinators. It doesn't matter because my standard is high enough, and the draw to coach here is high enough where it doesn't matter who comes in, we're going to still succeed. And Ryan is going to have to figure out, where do I want to go defensively? It's not a particular scheme, but it's a coach. And he hired Kerry Combs, and it hasn't worked.
No, didn't they demote him?
And then they took his play calling duties last week in the Tulsa game, and that didn't necessarily work. They're struggling with some personnel, both from injuries and the fact that they're just inexperienced at defensive back.
Let's wait another hour or two before we crown him the next Belichick.
Okay.
A lot of that. I'm not pointing just at you, Klatt.
You are actually physically. He was. I feel like physically he was pointing just at me. Ryan is a heck of a coach. Offensively, they're so good, and it won't surprise me at all if they're just fine after all of this is all said and done.
Okay, I want to get to something else. So again, I view myself as almost America's mentor to the media.
America's mentor to the to the media.
Yeah, Joy and I, by the way, collaborate on this because we see the world from a unique, accurate view.
Well, thank God Joy's involved, because if it was just you.
So when Mel Tucker got the Michigan State job, this is where I don't get the media. There were all these questions. I don't know. And I remember going and saying something on Twitter. I don't recall what it was. And I'm like, time out. Mel Tucker's going to be a home run at Michigan State. First of all, I've met Mel. Walks into the room, boom. He's got James Franklin quality. Like some guys walk in and they're like,
he does have presence. And at times it can be even like, some people can own the room with like a jovial presence, and some can own it with an angry presence. His is more of an intimidating anger type of presence.
In college football,
a furrowed brow.
Yes, presence is everything.
I agree.
Clay Helton had none. Mel Tucker's got a presence. The second thing is he turned Colorado in 2 years, which is a soft croissant at the bakery program into a physical presence. Now, here's
Colorado is a great, historically good program that has fallen on some hard times, and they're going to be just fine. But I do agree with you, though.
Is the greatest he's the best underdog coach, arguably, in the Big Ten. Harbaugh never wins as an underdog. Mel Tucker wins everywhere he goes as an underdog.
I think Kirk Ferentz is in there as well. I mean, you're forgetting about Pat Fitzgerald. You tend to be, while you proclaim yourself to be like the mentor to the media, you also are like the world's biggest prisoner of the moment, which is happening right now. So you see Mel like beat Miami, and he's like, yes! And you just dive into the prison cell of the moment.
You don't like...
Now, Mel is very good, and I'm a big fan of what Michigan State has done with Kenneth Walker. Yeah. But the best underdog coach in the Big Ten is Pat Fitzgerald. Let's not be the prisoner of the moment. They've won the division 2 of the last 3 years, and he's done it at Northwestern. Like that, Pat Fitzgerald does more with less in the Big Ten than anybody. Now, having said that, I love what Michigan State has done.
Hey.
And their identity of toughness and physical play and run game.
Yeah.
That's gonna pay huge dividends down the road in the Big Ten schedule. And that division, by the way, all of a sudden looks like it's somewhat up in the air. Penn State looks very good.
Very good.
Michigan, I'm not going to say this is the year because that's just like, it's great. Michigan looks good. They're leading the country in rushing, and then Michigan State also.
I'll tell you, how about that? I got to be honest, just that whole Penn State thing. Oh, my God.
That was good.
I took Auburn. I was slightly off. So let's go to this. So when you you got a big announcement. Let's wait. I want to hold that for a couple minutes. You got a big, major announcement.
I've got news. I'm breaking news here on your show today.
Okay. So one more little tiny thing. So it's not news yet, USC. So I came out and I said, I said, listen, consider a pro coach. Miami, UCLA, and USC are urban universities. You're not going to control things. Like, you got to get out of that. NFL coaches never get control. The owner has it. The GM has it. So NFL coaches, they like to coach. They don't worry too much about control. College guys tend to be kind of control freaks.
No, they're dictators.
Okay, so I said, LA, Miami, look at the history. Go, John Robinson, Pete Carroll, Dennis Erickson, Jimmy Johnson, Butch Davis. They either came from the NFL or appreciated it and saw the NFL as a real future job. So I threw Doug Peterson out. The Philadelphia coach who's on the beach reminds me of an offensive Pete Carroll, kind of a youthful, fun. If he lived in Hermosa Beach tomorrow and coached USC, he looks and feels like the coach. But I'll say this, and I'm not that I'm anti-college coach, but I would prefer a pro coach. The name I've heard from about 6 people, I don't even like going there, but good God, does he have a presence and does he feel big, is James Franklin. He feels huge. I watched him before that game. He owns every room he's in.
Yeah, I mean, and he's done a really good job with Penn State and gotten them to a point where he won a Big Ten championship. Probably should have gone to the playoff over an Ohio State team that he beat that year.
Yes,
but he didn't get in because of our wonky system with the postseason. He's done a heck of a job. He can recruit.
Yes,
and I think the one question, because I agree with you, and I don't think that the coach has to have coached in the NFL, but he has to have, I call it NFL DNA. And what does that mean? It means that a coach can own a pro city with his presence and also be comfortable enough in his own skin for his players to be more famous than him. That takes a unique personality.
It does.
And
James
Pete
has
had
that.
it, and I think James has that as well. He's done a heck of a job. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of interest there mutually.
I'm hearing that name in LA from people that have at least they're around USC. I'm just hearing it over and over from people I respect.
I have as well.
Okay. All right. So I don't know what's going on here. You got some big announcement to make.
Yes.
All right. So announce it.
Okay. So next week, our Big Noon Kickoff game is going back to Madison. We will have the Wolverines on our air against Wisconsin, Big Noon Saturday. But we also have had our road show, the Big Noon Kickoff, out with us to begin the season, and they're coming back out on the road. So we are going back to Madison, Wisconsin with Big Noon Kickoff. Rob, Reggie, Matt, Brady, and Coach Stoops will be live on campus for Big Noon Kickoff. Coverage starts at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Not this Saturday, but next. We're going to be live, both shows, in Chicago this week for Wisconsin Notre Dame.
Oh.
But the big news is Big Noon Kickoff will be live from Madison next Saturday, October 2nd, before Wisconsin and Michigan kick on Fox at noon Eastern.
I'll tell you what, these noon games are great.
I love them, and the ratings have been terrific. I'm telling you, the appetite for college football right now has never been better, and this is exactly what we needed, is more teams to have interest. Now all we need, and by the way, the College Football Playoff Board of Managers are meeting today, and they're talking about expansion. It's not going to go through today because of the SEC and their growth and expansion with Texas and Oklahoma, but very quickly, it will happen at some point. It's going to be great for the sport, in particular if we can grow to 10, 12, or maybe even 14 teams, because think of all the teams that would still have a massive amount of interest. Think about BYU fans right now. Thinking about a 12-team playoff, they'd be like, we're right in the hunt. We're 3-0, 2 ranked wins. BYU would be right in the hunt for the playoff. That would be good for the sport, folks.
Good to see you. You know what? The mutual respect here between us is
That's
very,
right.
very
It's very high. It's been stronger this year than others. I just have to pull you out of that prisoner of the moment issue.
I got a lot of passion for what I'm doing.
I understand. I mean, you forgot about Pat Fitzgerald. He was basically offered the Packers job a couple of years ago.
You got Ryan Day in Canton 3 weeks ago.
When did this happen? I've never compared him to Belichick in my life.
Some of you media types. I'm not in the media.
You're not?
No. I always say this. Austin, Texas is in Texas. It's not of Texas.
You're in the media, not
but I'm not
of the media. I see. You're a man of the people.
Boom.
That's interesting because I actually go and I'm around people. And none of them claim that you're a man of the people when I'm out and about.
You and Nick Wright may get canceled next week. I just don't like how I'm being treated. All right, when it comes to looking for work, most people would. Thanks, Klatt.
You bet.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.